Hello everyone, I am here with a true story from Guidepost for you. These are about miracles. We only got 2 or 3 left and then we're done with this book. Can you believe it? This big book. I have to find something else to read for us. Alright, so this one is by Ed Rosenthal and it is called 6 Days in the Desert. I stood atop a desert peak. All around me was silence. In the distance were mere mountains. The landscape was jagged and dry. Every fold and wrinkle of the terrain, every bone-dry gully and rock-strewn canyon, every detail of this beautiful, dangerous place stood out with crystalline clarity. It was the middle of September day, the hottest season in Joshua Tree National Park, where I'd come to do some hiking to celebrate a recent real estate deal. I'm a real estate broker in downtown Los Angeles. But those places are expensive. Not exactly a lucrative line of work in a recession. Until that September, I hadn't had so much as a nibble for a year. You could call my return to business a miracle, except I didn't believe in miracles. So that means he probably didn't believe in God. Hopefully something changed, right? The desert was as close as I came to spirituality. I felt a great peace out there amid all that silence. Just 3 days earlier, I'd been surrounded by reporters and cameramen in LA as I announced the sale of Clifton's Cafeteria, a historic restaurant in the heart of downtown. It had taken 3 years to put the deal together. Wow. A few days later, another big deal closed on another historic building. Some people might celebrate with a fancy dinner out. I headed for the desert. I kissed my wife of 21 years, Nicole, goodbye, and got on the freeway towards Joshua Tree. Nicole's used to my hiking trips. Most weekends, I walk in the Santa Monica Mountains near home. I try to make it to the desert at least once a year. I plan to hike to the top of Warren Peak, a 4-mile trek through rugged Black Rock Canyon. Shouldn't have went by himself. I made it to the top of the peak midday Friday with no problem. I'm 64. He should have somebody with him. But I'd hiked this route half a dozen times. It didn't bring back much in my backpack, just a water bottle, some lunch, and a few supplies, a whistle, matches, flares, a pen, and a lightweight reflective blanket made of mylar. I ate my tomato sandwich. Those are good. With toast. Hard-boiled egg and a few dates, then sat for a while, soaking up the silence. It's hard to describe desert silence. It's like its own sound, a presence created by absence. Finally, the midday heat beat down unforgettably, so I took a gulp of water and headed back down the peak. I scrambled down some rocks and descended a sandy slope toward where I thought the trail was, but after a few minutes, I hadn't found it. I stopped to look around. The landscape was confusing. Hills and canyons in every direction, but I recognized my mistake. I'd come down the wrong side of the peak. I saw a canyon leading back in the right direction. I figured it would intersect the trail at some point, so I clambered into it. Probably getting darker on this time. The canyon quickly narrowed and became very steep. Not a good idea. Soon I was hoisting myself down a 5-foot drop-off. I walked through sand and came to another drop-off, then another. Finally, the canyon ended, and I emerged atop a wide, barren hilltop. I recognized none of the landscape. I was going in the right direction. All I had to do was descend this hill, climb the other one there, and surely I'd hit the trail. I strode down, climbed up, and yep, there was a trail. It didn't look familiar. Maybe I'd been lost in thought when I walked this part. I set off down the path. I walked and walked. The sun lowered in the sky but lost none of its heat. I wasn't sure how long I'd been on this trail. I knew it was longer than it had taken me to reach Warren Peak. I came to a canyon and ventured inside. Everything became narrow, stony, impassable. I stopped. This was the wrong trail. I was lost. It was too late in the day to retrace my steps, and besides, I didn't know if I could climb back up those rocky drop-offs. I'd have to spend the night and find my way home in the morning. I opened my water bottle, a few swallows at most. I looked in my lunch bag, a couple of energy bars, but I was too parched to eat. I made my way back to the mouth of the canyon and found a sandy spot on a hillside. I took a sip of water. The sun tipped below the horizon, and suddenly the temperature plummeted. I wrapped myself in my blanket and lay down. The sky turned greenish blue, then purple, then black, carpeted with so many stars it made me dizzy. A cold wind stirred. I shivered and fell into a fitful sleep. I practically shouted for joy when I saw the first hint of dawn. I'd made it through the night. I took my last sip of water before the heat got too intense. I set out along the trail. Soon I saw a wash that seemed to lead in the right direction. I followed it. No, that was the wrong way. I retraced my steps and tried an REO. No luck. Finally, I returned to the hillside, admitting defeat. The heat was becoming unbearable, and I was thirsty. I saw a lone desert pine growing out of the sand. I made my way to it and flopped down in the shade. I lay there the rest of the day, thinking almost nothing. I tried to hold up the blanket for shade, but I must have torn it during the night. It was shredded. That night I nearly froze. The next day was Sunday. All I could think about was finding a lower place to sleep. Lower would be warmer. I stumbled down a wash for an hour or so until the heat got to be too much. I don't know what a wash is, do you guys? I hid in the shady canyon. Something buzzed. A horsefly was circling my head. Ooh. I don't like them. Company at last. I watched a fly in a daze. My throat felt hot and rough. Breathing was an effort. It's like I can feel it. The hardness to breathe, the heat in the lungs. The day dragged on, and the light slowly faded. I stared at the stars. For some reason, I remembered a news story I'd read about the famous physicist, Stephen Hawking. He'd been quoted saying the laws of physics alone were sufficient to account for the creation of the universe. Wrong. God was not necessary. Don't believe it for a second. I didn't quite think that, but I certainly didn't believe God would do anything to help me. You don't believe. You have to believe and ask. You'll see in a minute. Without a miracle, I'd die out here. There was no miracle Monday. Figuring I was nearing the end, I took a pen from my backpack and scrawled messages on my hat. I told Nicole and our daughter Hillary how much I loved them. I wrote instructions for my funeral. That night, words came to my lips I'd never seriously uttered before. The Shema Yisrael is a foundational prayer of Judaism. One Jews are taught to pray whenever they fear that they may not wake up again. I let the ancient words wash over me. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. The Lord is one. I said those words over and over until I fell asleep. Another day, another night. Wednesday, the sky looked different, redder. That means it's usually going to be hotter, doesn't it? That's what I've always heard. More words came to mind. Red sky at morning, sailors take warning. Surely it wasn't going to rain. September is the dry season in California, and Joshua Tree is one of the driest places on earth. I tried praying again. Oh, he's praying now. Wonderful, wonderful. I thought I remembered the Hebrew word for water. I said the word several times. I waited. 5 seconds, 10 seconds. A drop hit my face. Then another. Suddenly it was raining. Drops poured down on me. I opened my mouth. The sensation was indescribable. I swallowed as well as I could. The rain fell for most of the afternoon. The air cooled in the barren landscape. Just that morning, the landscape of my death seemed alive. I was witnessing a miracle, an answer to prayers I hadn't expected to be answered. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. Out of absence there was now presence. In this desert place there was something, no, someone, who'd been waiting for me. I wasn't lost. I was right where I was supposed to be. God had this all planned out. That night I slept peacefully, and the following morning I heard the whoop whoop of an approaching helicopter. I waved. The helicopter descended, and a man in a search and rescue uniform jumped out. He carried me to the helicopter. Then I was lying in a hospital bed, staring at Nicole's and Hillary's faces. I basked in the miracle that had saved my life. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. Those are words to live by in the desert or wherever I may be. Amen. He found out God was real in the end, didn't he? God had this all planned out. This guy didn't believe in God, didn't believe in prayer. But he found out, didn't he? And God is the one that saved him. And he found God. Can't get no better than that. Bye, guys.